Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to move on to our next segment. It's an article by Fairness and Accuracy in Reporting, which I wrote. Their newsletter, their magazine, they called it, I guess. I wrote something in it. God, I'm so old. Almost 30 years ago now. No, 25, 24, 25 years ago, something like that. On micro broadcasting, people who run their own radio stations. And some hypocrisy out of the FAA and FCC. But anyways, just reminded me of it when I saw the picture come up again. Okay, so the title of the article is Thin Blue Lines Behind Crime Wave Hype. Okay, so let's start with a quote. The narrative isn't a new one, and it certainly doesn't seem to be a genuine. Local conservative tabloids like the Post in New York, this is New York, so it's the New York Post, and New York Daily News have for years tried to stir fear of a city overrun by crime. This is what's going on and has been going on in the cities for decades. It's louder now in Chicago, and that brings me up to this point. One of the loudest people complaining is a former Chicago public school CEO. I am interviewing Paul Vallis, taping an interview with him on Wednesday, which will be aired next Monday. If you have questions you want put to Mr. Vallis that you suggest we ask him about his takes on crime and violence, and he is not silent on the issue for sure. I'm not sure what credibility he has on the issue. I'm kind of devoid of why he has any experience on the issue and should be taken seriously. But he's doing that. And this is no matter what city you're in, you have elements within those cities that are pushing all the time, no matter how much crime drops, as crime being out of control, to push their alt-right, incredibly conservative crime and justice agenda. This is just what they're doing. It's a trope now. It's just something that they can't help but regurgitate out of their mouth. And if you look at Chicago, for instance, ladies and gentlemen, let me remind you, we talked about this last show or 2 shows ago. In 2020, as bad as the violence was, it didn't get up to the violence levels in 2016. That's right. Not something you hear from the media in Chicago, right? Chicago's out of control. It's unbelievable. Lori Lightfoot, our mayor, the David Brown, the superintendent, Alderman Raymond Lopez, 15th Ward, and there's other aldermen. And oh my God, Paul Vallis, former Alderman Bob Fioretti, the guy who's lost pretty much every office in Chicago now politically. Oh my God, crime and violence is out of control. Really, it's the worst it's ever been. Oh yeah, it's almost up to that worst year in 2016. That's right. It doesn't mean it's good, but come on. This is a trope. It's just like make this connection. Urban equals crime equals urban predator, right? The black male predator we had in the 80s. So let's talk about the article still. William Bratton in the Post on June 10th, made both arguments, claiming that the city and state lawmakers went too far to aid criminals. Bail reform and defunding conversations. This is Mr. Bratton, remember, that did nothing when his officers in public at an event turned their backs en masse on the Mayor de Blasio. Instead of what the military would have done, which is clamp down on them and discipline would have been going on for years. He did nothing. Remember Bill. All right. Bill is also the Rudy Giuliani broken windows fraud. The research has shown that was all bullshit. Crime had started dropping in New York before broken windows was put into place. And by the way, ladies and gentlemen, the same thing with Chicago and CAPS and community policing. Crime started dropping before any of that happened. And at the same time, crime dropped all over the country, near levels, all at the same time. So it wasn't 18 or 19,000 different police agencies with, God, millions of different policies that made it happen. It was a phenomenon we still can't explain all over the country. All right. So according to Bratton and others, the New York Post, all of these alt-right people, the defund movement, the defund argument drove the 2020 crime. The only problem with it, ladies and gentlemen, all the people defunding, right? No defunding happened in major cities, really. LA, Lightfoot in 19 got rid of 466 officers. That's after Rahm cut 1,400 positions and then hired, or 1,200, and then hired 1,000 back. There's just umpteens amounts of social science I could pile up that shows police staffing numbers. It isn't just a number of cops, it's what you do with them. But these people don't care about science. So here's a quote from Columbia University professor Bernard Harcourt, this is the Columbia professor. We have a professor, we've reached out to Michigan State, and I can't remember his name off the top of my head, about an expert on police staffing. We're going to have him, try to get him on the show to talk about it. The attacks on the movement to defund policing or reform bail came straight out of the conservative playbook. It's the same script from the 1960s and the reactionary response to the civil rights movement. That's right. These are people, Vallis, Raymond Lopez in Chicago, Lightfoot, Brown, others. Correlation equals causation. It doesn't, ladies and gentlemen, it doesn't. You know what? Believe it or not, I lost weight during the pandemic, which also means I lost weight in 2020. So it must be my weight loss that caused the violence to spur in cities. That's how stupid their arguments are. All right. So let's get back to the article. This is an interesting point. It's a little long, but it's worth reading. After his election, and a sort of inverse of what is happening today, Giuliani took credit for declines in crime in the 90s that began a year before Giuliani became mayor and were part of a nationwide crime decrease. The same politicization of crime happened in the 1990s with broken windows policing. Each time it's just manipulation to score a political point. Harcourt reminds me, the crime decreases benefited not only Giuliani and law and order Republican politics, it also gave leaders like William Bratton, Giuliani's commissioner, political power by defining them as saviors of the city. Now remember, ladies and gentlemen, especially in New York, at the same time that crime had started to go down before Giuliani took, also what happened is a massive, unprecedented gentrification. Unprecedented. It all happened at the same time. In the same thing, in Chicago gentrified to some extent too, or large swaths of the city, West Loop, South Loop, I mean, you can go on, right? So that's part of it also. Now, what this article is very good at putting out is that you have politicians like Rudy, soon to be in prison Giuliani, almost disbarred Giuliani, and police chiefs like Bratton and others taking credit for all these crime drops in the 90s, as if they had science that proved they were the ones responsible for it. They didn't. But they took credit. And this is part, like, every idiot police superintendent and every idiot cop and judge and all of these people and politician that were in the offices from the mid-90s forward till about 2014 or 15, when crime kind of plateaued. Crime just kept going down. 3, 2, 3, 4% around the country, year after year after year after year. We still can't explain it. Most ethical scholars can't explain it. And it kept going down through the recession, the Great Recession of 2008. Don't know why. We expected, criminologists like myself and others, expected a massive swing because of the economic turmoil. It did not happen. So all these idiots, politicians, police chiefs, judges, whatever, prosecutors, they all took credit for these great crime drops. They may have had nothing to do with, or they had minimal roles in dealing with it. And they all took credit. And now the opposite of that is happening, where crime is out of control. It really isn't a police issue. It probably isn't mostly isn't due to police and police activities. You know, we have this international pandemic thing going on, and we're still dealing with unemployment and waiting for life to get back to normal. I've talked about it 100 times in this show. So now the opposite is happening, and Lopez has no clue what's causing it, Alderman Lopez. Neither is Fioretti, neither is Vallis, and we're going to get Vallis. If you got questions for him, info@chicagojustice.org, or hit up any of our social media and drop us questions. You can drop them in now in the chat if you want, and we will put them to him. And we're recording somewhere around noon Central, I think, something like that, on Wednesday. And then we will air it on Monday, July 5th. Okay.